Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
Well, here we are, bro. We've talked about all of season one, and now we talked about season one individually episodes. So now we're going to talk about it as a whole. Before we get to that, we had an interesting morning as we just got the announcement for Downton Abbey 2. Back to the hood, baby.
Oh my God. No.
Dowager Countess. Pop, pop.
Hey.
But the real reason I wanted to talk about this is because I had this thought. Who in Downton Abbey would survive the best on Lost?
Oh, geez. Probably Tom.
Okay, like early series Tom was very hot-headed.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have survived long enough to become like the Tom that we all know and love now.
Okay, hang on now.
I think he's one of the best characters on that show.
Uh-huh.
But if we get Tom now and throw him on the island, yeah, probably. But like if you talk I don't even know if he was in season one, season two, yeah. Tom, when he first comes out as the driver, I don't know, that's the Tom who crashes on this island. I don't know.
Okay, hang on though, because now you're talking two different things. You're just asking who in Downton Abbey has the best shot at surviving the island. You're not talking about, but that was season one. If we drop this, what you got to establish then what, because then are we going to say that either currently or present or currently or in the past, because what about what's his name? What about Matthew? I don't know that Matthew would necessarily survive, but I think he would have a good shot.
That's really interesting because I'm thinking about who would have a good shot. I think Matthew would have a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just a lot of the way love life notwithstanding, everything else about him was pretty solid. He was a good soldier. I think he was an excellent leader. I think he was the kind of the commoner who's thrown into this rich world, and he was still able to hold his own intellectually, which honestly, that's he was such a loving and good character. That's why, when he does die, it hits so hard and it really changes the show. But yeah, I don't know. I feel he would have a good chance at surviving. I feel like Mr. Bates would. Ooh, would he still have his limp?
Oh man, he might not have his limp.
I know who would survive, without a doubt.
Who?
Anna. She was put through so much crap in that show, and she always came out stronger for it.
Dude, that's true.
She's the strongest one in the show,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And honestly, Dowager Countess, because she's unstoppable. You just Maggie Smith would be in the Rose role.
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, yeah,
super wise, but very, very brunt with her wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably. Okay.
Interesting.
All right, we got some contenders. Yeah.
So at least for season one, yeah, we got some contenders.
Yeah, it's definitely not Mary though. So
no,
I'm glad we're agreed on that.
Well, although we have seen Shannon's journey, and I think that's very similar to Lady Mary and her entitledness. Those characters. It's
this is
trope.
True. This is
it's
true.
The trope.
Yeah.
So who knows? I'm gonna have to do further thinking about this. When we discuss our season 2 recap, we'll retouch this, because I feel like Mr. Carson is kind of too stuck up. Mrs. Hughes has a good chance. I don't know. I'm really curious about this now. So if you're listening, let us know at hashtag Lost Legacies which Downton Abbey character has the best shot of survival, at least season 1 of Lost.
Yeah, because we're not getting ahead of ourselves. We just want to know which people upstairs or downstairs do you think has the best shot of surviving season 1 Lost.
Marigold would get kidnapped in like episode 1. Marigold. Okay, well, let's get back on top. I completely forgot about the one character I was going to bring up. I was going to say Mr. Mosley would kind of like, he would somehow survive. I don't know how. Somehow. He would like wander into like a cave, break his leg, and like come back 6 seasons later alive somehow after everyone's dead.
Like, he would still go through like his own like very interesting personal journey. Yeah. But then when he comes out 6 seasons later, like the island's on fire, you know, they're fighting like I don't know, Lizard Warrior, Transformers, and everything that we just saw him go through means absolutely nothing. Yeah. And that would be the perfect summation of Mr. Mosley on
I love that character.
I don't even care if he has the best shot at surviving now. I just want to see somebody write some Mr. Mosley fan fiction for Lost. Have him go on his own.
His character is kind of like Pooh Bear. He's just kind of very oblivious, and he never realizes the danger he's in. He just kind of like walks through it, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. So, now I don't even want to talk about season 1.
Well, this got out of pocket real fast.
Oh my God. Okay. So what do we want to discuss? We're already off the rails. Well, let's start with you because I don't know what to say. So I'm going to throw it to you. What was your thoughts? Here you are, 1 season in.
I'd say
you hate it.
I hate it. I don't know what we're doing here. I can't believe I have to watch 5 more seasons of this crap, this garbage, as we in the industry say. No, I don't know. I think, no, I'm not even going to say I think because I know. I loved it. I love season 1. I think this is a very solid first season. I think it's one of the strongest first seasons of a TV show I've ever seen. And especially given its time, given how fast it was, you know, essentially rushed into production. Yeah, I think this is kind of the best scenario of a situation like that where you have 2 months to basically write, cast, shoot, and edit a 2-hour pilot.
I think with the exception of the Ethan storyline, they handled this season like phenomenally. Like there's just going back now, you can kind of see little hints and stuff like, oh, they're kind of making it up as they go.
Mm-hmm.
And now, of course, this is all meta. This is just outside, you know, thinking. It's like, yeah, you know, but they were forced in that situation. But watching it for the first time, like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a lot of people kind of saying it just like, I don't know. I guess people are just afraid to experience something, to feel something. That's why they're like, oh, they're making it up. I'm not actually in this experience where everything's going to pay off and come together. No, they're just making it up. Like, so there's already like the haters ever since episode 1, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Why? Because they were in a plane crash. So they're all dead. They're purgatory.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that kind of mindset. Like, it's just dumb. Don't talk to me unless you can give me like debate with me or give me something of substance. What makes you think that? Well, they're dead and weird stuff is happening. So,
like, have you ever stepped outside your house? There's so many different weird things. There's weird things in our work lives, in our personal lives that just happen. You know, there's no like 1-to-1 cause and effect. There's no 3-act structure for my personal story. Life is full of this strange, random occurrences. And if you want to look deeper into some sort of meaning, I'm sure you can find them. As far as coming from like a narrative standpoint, yeah, obviously, I think every story should have some sort of structure to it that needs to feel satisfying. And that satisfaction is going to come at people in different ways. And everybody's going to have their own sort of like ratio for it. And for some people, you know, Lost, even in season 1, yeah, didn't pay off. Not interested. I don't give a shit. They've all been dead since they got there. And that's fine. You're allowed to think that. But I think it's also, I don't know. I feel like at least give it a shot. Don't just sort of like toss it out and being like, my one thing that I've started doing is to, like, I'm just gonna, whenever I'm watching something, whenever I want to watch something, I want to go in with as little expectation as possible. I want you to tell me a story that you want to tell me. I want to feel something, and I want to be entertained. If you can make me feel something, good. I think your movie did great. If you can entertain me while that's happening, yeah, I'll, sing your praises, ad nauseum. But to just sort of like pass off Lost and saying that, like, it's whatever, like it didn't come to, a fruitful ending or whatever. And like, I don't know. I had a point that I was coming to, and then I just sort of lost it. I guess maybe that's what Lost
like
is to some people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
yeah, just
because you're talking about, there's several different points there, and I mean, like, it's absolutely, it's your right, I guess, to not like something.
yeah,
But
no one's gonna come over to your house and like beat you with a paddle board. If you
unless
don't
you're
like
Jay and Silent
Lost.
Bob.
Yeah,
which is like my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah, that was good.
What I have a problem with is kind of like that other part you're talking about. Right off the bat, it's like they don't want to give it a chance.
Yeah,
They and we're seeing it today. There's some people who very, 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 very much who really don't like any of the new DC movies. So they go in with like their critique goggles on. They're ready to rip it to shreds. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of the modern DC movies, and I was always I love both Marvel and DC, but I was always attracted to the DC characters more. I
Yeah.
love Batman so much. So, I'm just kind of bummed with, the last couple of years in the DC movies. But I always go in, I want to have a good time. I want to have fun. I'm not going in to hate it. I'm going in hoping for the best. But there's people who aren't.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. There's DC fans who hate the MCU.
Yeah.
They hate watch it. Take my money, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's just I don't know why. It's like a little microcosm of the political world right now. It doesn't really matter what either side represents. You just hate them because they're the other team. It's the stupidest thing. They don't want to be taking on this experience, and that's a lot of what we're talking about. The early Lost haters, because especially going back and watching this first season, like there's really nothing to hate about it or to dislike. So to dislike this show at this point, one season in, it's either just not your thing, which is fine, or you're actively trying to find something to tear down.
Yeah.
What's that line from Fight Club? I felt like destroying something beautiful. One, don't start with Jared Leto, okay? Because that's just weird.
I was just about to say that.
I had a talk with a coworker about that. In the book, what's his name? Angel Face? Babyface?
I think it's Angel Face.
Angel Face. He's supposed to be this very like angelic looking person. But in the movie, you have like scrawny looking, almost like anorexic looking Jared Leto with like bleached hair. And I'm like, that's the no.
Yeah.
He has those model eyes, but that's it. I don't know. He had it coming in the movies.
It's my favorite Jared Leto performance, because he gets the shit kicked out of him.
I actually really, really like him in The Thin Red Line because I don't even know if he has a few lines. I mean, he does a good enough job, but most of I just remember his death scene. It's super quiet. Just the sound design in that movie was mind blowing. And his soldiers just like crawling up this grassy hill in the shade, and you just hear the breeze and you hear the grass, and like Jared Leto's the one leading them up. So like all this communication is silent. It's just hand signals. He's just there. chewing his gum. And then as soon as like the sun passes over the hills, did you start fighting? He's like the first one to go. I was like,
Dang.
to do so much with like no lines, to do so much with
Mm.
so little, I thought it was great. And he didn't have to go. I don't want to shit talk an actor or anything, but he didn't have to go crazy to give a good performance.
Mm.
You know, that's one of my critiques on his acting abilities. I do believe there's a fine line between good acting and crazy acting.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're shouting doesn't mean you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Just because you're going crazy doesn't mean you're doing a good job.
I'll scale it back and not use the word crazy, but use intense.
Intense. We'll go with intense. Although
Intense
his
is
characters are crazy, but it's intensity. Yeah, there's a difference between good acting and intense acting.
Because I think of him in the latest Blade Runner movie, and easily for me, like the weakest part of that film.
Exactly.
And it's because he's not acting. He's doing something, you know, but it's not, you know, everybody else is, you know, doing their job, you know, they're going at it. And like he is too, but to a point, and it's like, I don't know.
That whole world is this fantastical cyberpunk world. It's in a way it's magical because it's one of those experiences. It's taking us out of our world into something beyond. And what makes Blade Runner work, the first one and the second one, is how real it is. Here you are in this crazy, it's not magic the way we would think of it, but this crazy like experience, and all this cool stuff, and technology is so advanced. It's just so out of this world, but it's grounded. All the characters are real characters. You can see them here, whether it's Harrison Ford or who's the actress who plays the chief, the captain in the second one?
Robin Wright.
Yeah, like she did amazing. And you have Ryan Gosling kind of doing the whole, he's not real, but he's trying to find some kind of humanity himself. Like it's all real performances. Even Batista in the beginning, I thought he did great.
That's one of his best like roles that he's had.
Yeah. And then you have like the antagonist of this movie is like a Bond villain. It's like so cheesy and fake. It just kind of ruins, it doesn't ruin the experience, but yeah, it's the weakest part of that movie.
I think the first Blade Runner, you know, troubled production and all. I think when it comes down to it, it's a well-oiled machine, or at least it's a cool mosaic that you're like, okay, like we fit these pieces together and these things really worked. Even if you have somebody like the original villain Tyrell, as you know, he kind of wear his you know sinister smile, like you know he wears that, you know he plays into that role, but when you have somebody like Rutger Hauer going in and giving this performance of somebody who really at the end of the day just wants to live.
Yeah.
They don't care about killing. They don't care about a body count. Their main goal at the end of the day is to live another day, is to keep on living. I think that I think that's kind of like the crux of the Blade Runner universe, is that it is this like not so much outlandish anymore, but this wildly fascinating science fiction opera, but all of the characters are locked in this very realistic human drama. You know, their motivations are clear. You know, Deckard doesn't want to be a killer, and yet he's forced to be, you know, and all of the replicants want to be human, and they're constantly denied that at every turn. So,
yeah,
you know, it's, you know, talking about, you know, like human rights, you know, aside, it's just that idea of like, when you want something that you were constantly being told is like unattainable. To bring it back to Lost, that's kind of the crux of Lost. It is this fantastical island, you know, full of these mysteries, full of weird smoke monsters, security systems, and mysterious hatches and uh, ships, that are just randomly in random parts of the island, but it's a human drama. That's why we keep having the flashbacks to who these people were before they got onto the island.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going through these trials and tribulations, becoming a higher form of themselves. I won't even say it's a better form of themselves. It's just a higher form of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, if it's better or not is has yet to be seen.
Yeah. Has yet to be seen, debate. Yeah.
It's the human, it's the characters that keep driving us back. Look at the character of John Locke. Like that's a character who he's definitely the wild card. He could be crazy. That's kind of, I like how it's very, the show leaves it up to the audience to decide for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like whose side are they on? Are they on or not? I guess it would be like, are they on Jack's side or Locke's side? But that's more recent, towards the end of the season. I guess it's just, are they on Locke's side or not?
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like the further we get into Locke's story, the more we're kind of, wow, is this guy crazy?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And there's no Terry O'Quinn is a fantastic actor. There's no, how does he play crazy? And it's simple. He just plays it real.
Mm-hmm.
To him, it's the story of this man going on this like spiritual quest. That's it. And through that, it becomes this really, not a crazy performance, but a crazy character. And I'm using crazy loosely, but like that's how he's able to capture it. That's how he gets the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Joaquin Phoenix is a good example. How do you use the intensity without being crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Even the Joker, I got a lot of feelings about Joker, which I'm not going to get into, but I think as an actor, as a performance, he captured that intensity without fully going crazy. Okay, we're talking about Joker. Even Heath Ledger. Yeah, he literally played a crazy character, but we were with him like every step of the way. Like for such a chaotic character, it made sense. The things he was doing made sense for him, for this world that this movie is presenting us.
Mm-hmm.
Joker, the Leto Joker is just like, it was just intense. It didn't really have the groundedness. It was just, I don't know, maybe if they release the Ayers cut, we'll actually see what's so good about him, like I don't know.
On one hand, it all just comes down to what story are you telling? And what service is this character to the story that you're telling? The Joker movie is a story about him. It's about his, becoming, metamorphosis, whatever, his eventual transformation into that character. So us being with him on that journey, like, yeah, and we're, even though he is eventually an antagonist and kind of is antagonistic the whole movie, he's still our protagonist. We're following him, and everything is affecting him to get him to that point. So I think in terms of that, having Joaquin Phoenix be in that role and sort of like, utilizing everything that he has, like I think Joaquin Phoenix does a great job at it. As much as I may disagree, ideologies and, whatnot, I think, yeah, he gives a great performance. Somebody like Heath Ledger, you have to remember they're servicing a story that isn't necessarily about them. He's a villain in a Batman movie, and so they're doing like, it's basically just to say that they're doing two different things. But you're still able to get these very nuanced approaches to them where somebody else might not. Like, yeah, like Leto doesn't, necessarily get to it. I have something I want to talk about. And I think I can find a way to weave it into Lost. I wonder if part of the hesitation for people, to sort of be like, to either jump into Lost or to just hate on it. I wonder if it comes down to the fantastical and the real being sort of like meshed together, sort of like slammed together in this way. I know that, like, some people, you're like, okay, yeah, like you watch, like you can watch a movie and then it's like, oh, suddenly there's a twist. It's like, oh, it's actually a little bit science fiction. Oh, it's actually a little bit spooky. Mm. Oh, heaven actually is a thing. Ghosts really exist. I wonder if that's sort of a turnoff for some people, where it's like, I would rather just watch a human drama about people going through this stuff and not have a supernatural ending. Because that's what kind of turned Hollywood and Universal into such like a big hit with Dracula. Up until Bela Lugosi, all of the sort of horror movies that were coming out that had a supernatural slant, there was a realistic explanation for all of it by the end. The villain wasn't actually supernatural. It was mirrors and smoke and all that stuff. When Dracula came in. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very much like against going full head on into the supernatural to explain, these things. Like, no, we're going to explain it away with science or something like that. When Dracula happens and they say, no, this dude's a vampire, it shatters everybody's illusion of what a movie can be, of what a horror movie can be as well. And so I wonder if that's some sort of hesitation that people have going into something like that. Like, would you rather Lost just be a human drama about people stuck on an island, or do you want to go the opposite way and just have it be like full sci-fi? Let's go full 100 with this baby and just say that it's a sci-fi right out of the gate. I wonder if that's a thing where it's like people don't like it when the line is being straddled like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's a safety in knowing your genre.
Mm-hmm.
Lost was so mysterious. Nobody knew what to expect from this show. And we even talked about it in one of the early episodes, like what we didn't know what Lost was, I think you thought it was like a kind of Robinson Crusoe, right? Like they're just surviving.
Yeah.
And then I really didn't know. I was expecting something like Twilight Zone-ish, which it is. I guess it's Twilight Zone light. It's just mysterious things that we can't explain are happening.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had gone full sci-fi from the beginning, I think people would have lost a lot of fans, but you would have had a core that stayed.
Mm-hmm.
If they went full supernatural, same thing. I think it sucks because I guess it worked to its detriment, but it would probably work nowadays. But the fact that they were so vague, they never really stepped all the way in on this first season.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we've discussed a big part of it was ABC, because they wanted to stretch out this mystery as long as they could.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the storytelling choices they wanted to do, they couldn't do. Because if you look at something like Indiana Jones, it's fun, it's action, it's adventure, but there's always some kind of power behind it. In the first one, they're literally they have the Ark of the Covenant, a radio to God, and it's like that's straight up supernatural. The ending. The second one, yeah, it's supernatural-ish. It's kind of like played off though.
Yeah,
because we never actually know. It's just weird stuff is happening. It's not like the first one or the third one where they literally meet the knight protecting the Holy Grail. Those are straight up. Oh, and then part 4, yeah, they're straight up aliens. 4 straight up aliens. 1 and 3 are straight up connections to some kind of higher power, whether supernatural or spiritual, religious.
Yeah.
The second one, it's all like, we think they're possessed.
No, Indy gets full possessed. People are possessed in that movie. It's dark. It's dark magic. It's sorcery. Dude, a man's heart is ripped out of his body and he's still alive, and then gets chucked into lava. It never outright stayed. I can see what you're saying,
but that's the thing. It's not. It's never really outright. Indy's able to kind of jump genres a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
People love it. So I guess the fact that Lost is more of a mystery, people weren't really able to latch on to one thing, and I don't know, like they didn't want to take that ride.
Mm-hmm.
So
and you know what? I think in all fairness, I think people didn't want to take the ride because they didn't want to be disappointed.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
They didn't, and I can totally agree with that. I feel like I've stopped really watching as many shows as I have because I don't know if I'm going to love it right out of the gate, and I don't want to be disappointed, whether it is unceremoniously canceled or if it just loses itself, by the end of season 4 or 5, whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about that. And it's even stemming into some movies that I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch that, because what if it is disappointing, and what if it does feel like that? And I can see, especially with TV, that's, and especially with a show like Lost, any older show, like 2010, it's a long commitment, because their seasons are like 22 episodes long. That's hours and hours, depending on how many seasons you have, that's so much time dedicated to something that might not have an ending that you're completely satisfied with, and then you're just left with, well, what did I watch this for? I wasted all my time. Yeah,
and I'm excited to keep going with this because I love the ending. I'm curious to see how I feel about it now after all these years later. I do feel like the ending is warranted. There are clues scattered throughout the whole show, and like even then, like I don't really know how much you know about the ending of the show, but there are already like little spatterings of clues towards the end in this first season. Like I feel like it's definitely one of those shows where it's like they had this crazy idea for the end and they somehow made it there. Because going back on this rewatch, I'm like, yeah, this totally sets up the ending, or at least brings up the idea, the concept. One thing I'll say, because I do not want to, spoil anything from the show, but what other big franchise, world-changing franchise was happening at this time? Harry Potter.
Oh, I was going to say Star Wars, but okay.
At this point in time, we were getting the back end of the Harry Potter novels during Lost, and we got most of the Harry Potter movies while Lost was airing. Because I think the last one was 2010, 2011, something like that.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, and the show ended in 2010.
Okay.
There are a lot of really out there concepts and themes. We'll go with themes. There are some hard, heavy themes of Harry Potter that are also Lost. But we as an audience accept it more with Harry Potter because that's straight up magic. That whole world is magical. So we're willing to open our hearts and expand our emotional bubble to accept these themes. What is that franchise about? Oh, it's this. Whereas Lost, it's like, no, I want answers. I want to know exactly what this means and what this means. I don't want to open my heart. I want hard facts, damn it. It's two totally different things. And I actually think both franchises are very similar in a lot of thematic ways as far as like their views towards like good and evil and stuff like that. Except 15 years later, Lost is very diverse and accepts everyone regardless of their gender. Moving on. What else should we talk about?
I don't know if I can tie this back to Lost.
Okay.
But this was a thing that I was thinking about, and I have been thinking about it. And it's been something that's sort of been just in small, subtle ways coming back to me. And anytime I'm looking at, like Twitter, looking at, oh, people were talking about Marvel, DC, the movies and stuff. I think
here we go.
I think
when Sam has to sigh before his statement, we're in for it.
that's when it's really good. Okay, here's the thing. When you're looking at the best way to tell a story, you can tell a story, 1,000 ways. If you want to get technical, every story now is just a deviation and an iteration of one of like the 10 or whatever original stories, from the Greeks. I think what people have a problem with is sort of just letting things not fall within this realm of realism. Okay. Let me backtrack a little bit, because here's what I'll say, and then maybe I'll find a way to like to get to it. But 2005, we got Batman Begins.
Mm-hmm.
Smash it across the board, practically like launches Christopher Nolan's career, into like superstardom. And it's great. It reinvigorates the Batman franchise. It reinvigorates the DC sort of comic book movies, sets up a track to where you can basically pinpoint like every decision that Warner Brothers makes with their movies up to now, basically backtrack it all the way to that. However, I think it's sort of a wrong step, because what everybody sort of decided at that moment, that the best way to tell a story about a billionaire who's trained by ninjas and dresses like a bat in order to fight the social injustices that are being done in his city, is to tell that story as realistically as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of get the same thing with the Bond franchise. We're no longer doing the wristwatch that can like magnetically stop a bullet. We're not, there's no jetpacks. We're not doing any of that. We're doing Bond brutally murdering somebody in a bathroom 5 minutes into the movie. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying now, looking back on it and seeing the course of action that those have taken, we're now stuck in this weird thing where we have these ultra serious concepts, these ultra serious movies about things that, were always a little bit cartoony, but now that is the only way people can see them.
I'm going to pause you real quick, because I think there's a third movie in that trilogy. I remember thinking about this when it was happening. Like, I remember that process of that change. Cause you also have Born Identity, which really, that kind of changed action movies, but also for the better and for the worse as well.
Yeah. But
the trilogy was, you have Batman Begins. Let's do a dark, gritty superhero movie. You had Casino Royale. We're going to no more fun, campy spy movies. And then it's not really its fault, because it's kind of like happens in the book too. You had Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. You had all those movies within 1, maybe 2 years.
Actually, no, I think they're all the same year.
05,
I think it's all
right?
2005. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had those 3 movies in 3 different genres going through the same thing. Now, Goblet of Fire, the book, I swear that's when it hit puberty, man, because once Cedric dies, like that whole franchise changed. It got darker. So that's kind of warranted, but I kind of stopped having fun in the movies after that.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that darkness. I've seen the first 4 over and over. I've probably seen the last few Harry Potter movies once.
I have seen the last 2 Harry Potter movies only one time, and that was when they were in theaters.
So I just wanted to throw that in there. You could go back onto your little rant, because I completely agree. But I wanted to throw that in there because I think that was the Holy Trinity of darkness that kind of spawned this movie age we're in right now.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, even, just looking at like the last 2 Fantastic Beasts movies, they're taking the same color palette as the latter Harry Potter movies. And I'm like, that's not what I want to see.
Where's the fantastic?
Yeah, where's the fantastical? Where's the magical? Like that, like, and that's sort of the thing, that's kind of what makes and gave Game of Thrones the launching pad that it needed, because we were ripe for that era of telling a human drama in a fantastical world. And like I don't know, I feel like everybody was okay with it because it started off as so innocent's the wrong word, but so real. This is, like it is a fake setting, it's a fake country, whatever, but it's still real enough that you're like, oh yeah, these are real people die, like elves aren't going to magically come down and save everybody. Like, no, like this is as real a depiction of a fantasy setting as we'll get, blah blah blah. But once it starts getting into the more fantastical, you're able to accept it more because it also wears it on its sleeve. We're talking openly about the history of dragons as if it's like the Battle of the freaking Alamo. That's just a natural part of history that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get to Lost, it is something that's like, I don't know. I don't know what makes Lost so unforgiving and unforgivable to people, that they don't want to go on that journey. Two, they don't accept the answers that are given to them because they're not satisfactory enough or something. It's still doing the same thing. It's telling this human story in this fantastical setting. What's the difference?
I think there's always going to be some darkness in the world, but I think we are definitely still feeling the aftermath of those early 2000s. I mean, if you think about Batman Begins, it's like, in a lot of ways, it's a perfect Batman movie, but just like Bourne Identity, they take the wrong lessons from it. You could do a cool, gritty spy movie without doing shaky cam and putting the camera up close. Look at Quantum of Solace.
Yep.
You can do superhero movies realistically without making it so damn dark. It worked for Batman because that's Batman. That's his character. And even Batman Begins, it really isn't that dark if you think about it. There's a lot of Art Deco, and then there's a lot of like the first half of the movie, he's traveling the world, he's fighting ninjas. Like, visually it might look dark, but it's not really a dark, gritty movie. That came in the next one. But the whole thing with Casino Royale was a post 9/11 Bond. And I think that was a big part of here's the thing. It wasn't the first post 9/11 Bond. The first one was what was it?
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day is Pierce Brosnan's last.
Yeah.
The whole reason they lock Bond in like a Korean gulag in the opening movie, or at the beginning of the movie, is because they said in a world where James Bond is running around, 9/11 never would have happened. That's why they had Bond get captured for X amount of years at the beginning of that movie. And even though that movie is still very fun and spy and stuff, it got a little more grounded. You're like, oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Did you just tell me that the reason why 9/11 happened in the Bond universe is because James Bond was locked in a Korean gulag?
It's because he wasn't there to prevent it. That's the whole thing. So James Bond, it's kind of infuriating, but James Bond has always been a product of its time. That's why, it's the Cold War. It's all about this Cold War against the Soviets. And then once we started getting out of that, especially around the 80s, we started having this more, or even before 80s, we started having more campy Roger Moore. You had Timothy Dalton going more like, who is he fighting? Drug lords? One of them he did.
Yeah, and
throws Benicio del Toro in a meat grinder.
Yeah. No, but it's like drug grinder. It's the thing that's refining the drugs. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So it's like the world and the context and the villains are always changing. But yeah, so in the James Bond universe, 9/11 would have never happened because James Bond would have stopped it.
I I have to bite my tongue on this because I have so many after very recently watching all of the Bond movies for the first time ever.
Uh-huh.
I have so many feelings and opinions about Bond, and hearing that just sort of really just hits it really hits the nail in the coffin for me that, you know what, I think it's just time. There are some franchises that I think we never need to revisit. We never need another one of them. Like Back to the Future, let's never do another one. Not because it's bad, but just because
it's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. But for Bond, the only thing that I'll say is that I think Bond has always been a step behind in both politics and in Hollywood trends.
Mm-hmm.
And just just the fact that that is a statement, that is a thing, that Bond would have stopped 9/11, but he was locked in a North Korean gulag. You know what? That's it. We're just going to end the Bond franchise. The Bond franchise is dead. Let's never come back to it. We have these movies and that's it.
I have the perfect solution, Sam.
Never want to see another iteration of James freaking Bond.
We're going to reboot Bond.
No.
Justin Lin. No. I've seen what that man has done with Fast and Furious. I want that man rebooting Bond.
Yeah, but the thing is that if there's not an in-universe explanation for why Dominic Toretto and his family didn't stop 9/11, Matthew.
That's why we're rebooting it.
No, I don't care. No, this is over. James Bond is gone. All right, I don't care. I don't care anymore.
I don't know. Like, I think it's a very problematic character. A lot of the movies haven't aged well.
Almost none of them have aged well.
Yeah.
Especially the Connery ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really interesting thing that I did watching, because, you know, I started from the original, started Dr. No and just went forward. I stopped at GoldenEye because I've seen those before, and I was willing to just like take a break from them, but I had never seen. I was so surprised that I found myself having more fun and liking Roger Moore way more than Sean Connery.
Dude, that's what I've been saying my entire life.
And you can the existential crises that I had inside of me, that I was like, wow, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, you know, there's so many just problems inherent within the character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, within the filmmaking. I don't give two shits that it was a different time, that it was the 60s when these movies are coming out. I don't care. We should have tried way harder, man. We should anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah,
but I'm
not going to go defend those movies, but the whole thing is like, just that concept of trying harder. It's like, why? That wasn't a thing back then. It's easy for us to say that. So going forward, that responsibility falls on us. So we need to try harder. Now, if that means not making Bond, okay. If that means taking a break from the Bond franchise,
20 years minimum. Okay. 20 years, no Bond.
I feel like we could do something cool with it. You know, we could have fun with it, man. Let's talk about, well, just real quick, just on that, very similar to Bond, I was a huge fan of Strike Back. Strike Back, that's a military show. You have, these guys they're not just soldiers. They're better than soldiers. They're like black ops soldiers. You know what I mean? They go, they kill who needs to be killed. They get it done. And usually like once per episode or once per 2 episodes, there's some kind of sex scene. So just in the span of like the eight seasons, I think it was 8 seasons, a lot changed in our world. And a lot of the reason the fans started leaving the show is because in that last iteration of Strike Back, a lot of things started changing. They're like, oh, this is too PC, blah, blah, blah. Where's the boobs? You know, now we have women soldiers. It's all like that toxic mentality. But I'm very much of the mindset that the last 2 seasons of Strike Back, which I guess you could say are PC, I don't know, they're probably the best of the whole show. I love the other cast. I love the old cast. But what they did just by cutting out, I'll just say this, the last season, there was no sex scenes. There was no nudity. It feels silly that that's a point I have to make. but it's real. It's legit. Once they got rid of that, like it was like, okay, to be Strike Back, you have to check these boxes. Once they scratched off that box for that last season, the show got so much better. We got so much more invested in their lives. We started caring about the missions, and it started focusing more on the characters, the soldiers themselves. The villains for the last season probably weren't the best, and Strike Back always had cool villains, but I found myself really pulled into the story of who these people were. And I think you can do something like that with Bond. You don't have to see it. Maybe you can allude to some kind of romance or an affair. You can do it in a way that's not toxic, which has yet to be done in the Bond franchise.
Yeah, even I mean, even Craig is tired of portraying Bond, as this misogynist.
Yeah.
It's like that's something that he just has to deal with as the character. But he constantly has to remind, like interviewers and stuff that like Bond's not somebody to look up to. He is a misogynist.
And also keep in mind the age too, because even a lot of actors, even Roger Moore was saying by the end, like he was having to bed girls who were like younger than his kids.
Yeah.
So that's something like you really have to take into account when you're writing these movies. Or you could just kind of avoid it by not doing it.
Yeah.
Or give him like, why don't we just write badass women characters? If Bond's going to take her to bed, maybe it's because she's actually taking him to bed. Let's put Bond in over his head for once. We never see a love scene between him and Moneypenny, but I don't think it would be that much of an issue in the Craig movies anyway, because Moneypenny is such a badass. And like the way they write her, like she's not taking advantage, but you don't have to either.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and that, that's kind of the thing too, where it's like, we don't need to have, our female characters. We don't need to have them be badasses. We just need to have them on an equal footing with what is expected. The only character across the board in any of the Bond movies that actively wants to be courted by Bond is Moneypenny. Even if it was Sean Connery that it happened with, at least there's this understanding that like, hey, this is something that we would both actually want. We would mutually benefit from the two of us doing this, and that's not because Moneypenny in those movies was, driving badass and, taking out spies and snipers and shit. Like that's a plus now, and I love this iteration of Moneypenny that we have. But like that's not to say that's all it takes is what I'm saying. It's just to have one person who equally wants the same thing that Bond does. That right there solves half of the problems with your freaking movies.
There we go. We're halfway solved.
And so it's like,
someone just give us the franchise.
It would be great if, we didn't still have the same two guys that have been writing it since Pierce Brosnan.
Exactly.
Like doing these movies, because it's like, look, you
need more blood, baby.
You do. Again, it's the thing of like Bond has always been a step behind. It's like we didn't get an ultra gritty, sort of realistic Bond until Timothy Dalton in the 80s. And by the time we got him, that sort of machoism from Hollywood was already sort of going out the door. Even though, Stallone and Schwarzenegger were in these hyper violent movies. That was already sort of leaving the cultural consciousness for something else. And so by the time Dalton shows up, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. But
so you got to do it. Any franchise, you got to look at MCU for guidance, but you got to take the right lessons. Okay, we're going to do MCU, so we're going to have James Bond shows and spin-offs. Like, no. Just get directors and writers who can bring a fresh take on something. And then actually let them do it. But at the same time, be like, hey, this is a franchise. We do need to kind of make it each movie similar and they flow together. But yeah, do your thing. I'm hiring you for a reason. There's so many opportunities. There's so many missed opportunities for Bond because you have the same writers coming over and over and over. There's no
Yeah.
room for growth. There's so many opportunities missed, and that's what I would call lost legacies.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I was
That's
just
pretty
trying
good.
to
And
tie it
now,
in somehow. There you go.
now I
Lost
don't
legacies.
even, now I
It's a
don't even want
story
to
we
make my
never got.
point. Yeah.
So
Incredible.
Mhm.
All I was going to say was all you have to do is just look at the Mission Impossible franchise and just go
Oh
from
yeah.
there.
There
You
you
know,
go.
one, Mission Impossible works because Tom Cruise lives and dies by those movies. It's like nothing's going to happen without his say so. He is the machine that's running that thing.
Mhm.
But you also have the benefit of Tom Cruise wanting to work with some of the most talented directors out
Yeah.
there. You know, somebody who can see freaking the Iron Giant and the Incredibles and Ratatouille and being like, I want you to make a live action Mission Impossible movie. And that's one of the best ones.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what has me kind of nervous about Mission Impossible lately because it's been the same director, but the last two were pretty damn good.
Last two were pretty damn good. And you know what? I'm totally here for it. Like
Yeah.
if this is the direction they want to go for these next two movies, like go for it. I'm down.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that's sort of the thing too, where it's like you have to try out different things until you find something that works and then you stick with it.
Man, we talked about everything, dude, except Lost.
Except Lost. Well, I mean, because you know, yeah, one, we covered a lot of stuff in the
We
season
did.
finale episodes.
I don't know if this review
you know,
recap was, needed because we talked about everything except Lost. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I do, I think more so what we're hitting on is sort of like we both, we both kind of, at least at this point, unabashedly love Lost.
yeah,
At the end of season one, we're loving it.
yeah. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
So with that said, I think going into like season two, I'm pumped. I'm ready. You know, I want to keep enjoying the show. I want to keep being surprised. I want to see if characters are gonna get their due. You know, I want to see which characters we're gonna lose this season because as of right now, I still know of at least like 3, 4 major people that we lose,
Mm-hmm.
but I know at least 2 of them aren't until like the last season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like so outside of like character deaths, like I'm completely oblivious. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know anything like that. And then as far as events go, I know interspersed here and there, like some things that they get up to, but I don't know when. You
Yeah.
know, so I know there's a big twist coming in season 3, but I'm more so just waiting for that to hit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just to be like, oh man, and just to sort of like be in that moment. But yeah, I think as of right now, I'm venturing on the side of like I love Lost and I wish more people would give it a chance, especially now, you know. And I think it is a completely bingeable show if you
Yeah.
just sat down and watched it now. I think it would probably be a better experience
Right.
potentially.
That was a point that I wanted to bring up a while ago. Here we are years later, and now we've mentioned it before, of course, but people's opinion on Lost is changing. People have
Mhm.
always been very split on whether they like the ending or not. But now that we're rewatching it, and not just us, the world, especially in this pandemic, a lot of people are enjoying the ending more. They're appreciating it more. And a big part of that is Damon Lindelof. Because after the leftovers, everyone was like, yeah, we want more of this guy. So what do we have? Prometheus and Lost. And a lot of people started saying, like, oh, we can start seeing his
Mhm.
style. We can see how he went from this to eventually get to the leftovers.
And Watchmen.
Yeah, the Watchmen is very recent though, but I'm saying even before that, people were
Oh,
starting to like follow his career more and see what else he had done. Or like, oh, he was
gotcha,
the guy from
gotcha.
Lost. Let's give it another shot. And a lot of people are walking away from the finale with better feelings about it.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's because maybe just times are different, or because they saw the leftovers and they're like, because that in itself is a show that has very interesting concepts and genre mixing, maybe even some flashbacks. I don't know. I never watched it, but everyone's telling me it's amazing and has an outstanding score. Never
Mm.
watched it, but I've listened to the soundtracks. Max Richter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
I like that
yeah,
guy.
so I think after watching that, and now maybe even after watching Watchmen, people are more inclined to enjoy Lost. Going
Hmm.
back to like, okay, well, I'm already used to this. Let's try and do this.
Hmm.
Kind of the way The Hobbit. We have a lot of differing opinions on The Hobbit. They're okay. They're decent movies, but a lot of problems people have with The Hobbit. It's funny because those same things are in the original trilogy, but we love it.
Mm.
Like the slow motion, or everyone's like, "Oh, this is so overly dramatic." I'm like, "Have you seen the original? Have you watched some of those fight scenes where they
Hmm.
they slow down the camera speed?" And I'm like, "It's the exact same thing. It's just for whatever reason we loved it, and it was tools that were used better in the original trilogy."
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing, but it's kind of not with Lost. Everyone's kind of more open now to all these different storylines, different flashbacks, I guess. Just different people are becoming more open minded towards the finale now and digging it. So I
Hmm.
hope we feel the same way. Oh, Sam, damn it, Sam! What if we get to the end? I'm like, you know what, Sam? I really hate that. I don't like the show anymore.
I mean, again, that's the risk that we're taking watching the show, you
We're
know?
going on this journey together, and we're taking all our listeners with us.
Exactly. Because I
Mhm.
mean, look, at the end of the day, we started this just as a way to keep hanging out with each other during this pandemic,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
know, as a way to just keep talking. And we're like, well, hey, we might as well do something like a little more productive.
Yeah.
Now we're watching Lost and talking about it on a podcast. And, you
Hmm.
know, that is technically more productive than you and I just sitting down going nuts over some different thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we did with this
That's
episode.
kind of what today was. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
today is a perfect example of what we would have done if we
yeah.
weren't watching Lost this whole time.
Hey, maybe that's what people want.
Maybe, who knows? If you
But I wouldn't
guys,
know because no one has sent us messages or tweets at hashtag Lost Legacies.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the
So,
thing, if you don't want us to keep talking about Lost, tell us about that.
and if you do, tell us about that.
Tell us about
So,
that too.
this episode's already gone long enough, and there was really no point to it, but I like a lot of the points we brought up.
Yeah, we
So,
talked about a lot of great, interesting things. Very few of them were lost.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. Okay, so announcement time, people.
Announcements? We never have announcements.
I know. Good news and bad news. Good news
All
is
right.
we are going to begin season 2 of
Hell
Lost.
yeah. Hell yeah.
That being said, we have a lot of stuff on our plates right now. We have
Yes.
several Lost Legacies projects we're working on, and we have a few non-Lost Legacies projects we are working on. So we are loaded. And so that means we're going to be taking some time off. Well, not really, because me and Sam are going to continue to work on this every week. But we're kind of pausing the show for 4 weeks.
Count
Uh,
it.
four.
4.
So I know like that seems like a lot. So May 31st, a Monday, we're going to be jumping back in with season 2, episode 1. Now, we don't like the idea of going a whole 4 weeks without an episode, because even if we skipped 1 week this season, we saw huge numbers drop in listeners who like didn't come back. And we're assuming you guys are there. We're seeing your numbers rise. But yeah, we want to keep you all around and we want to give you all good content. So we're taking off for 4 weeks, but that doesn't mean we're not going to give you anything for those 4 weeks. So we don't really have a schedule. We don't really have anything like locked, the dates locked and loaded, but we do have a little 1 or 2 special somethings that we're going to drop so you don't go 4 weeks without the show.
Mm-hmm.
So keep a lookout for that. Might be next week. It might be 2 weeks. We'll see. We'll figure it out. So you won't go on a Lost Legacies diet. I don't know. Maybe it's diet because it's just less. But so stick around because we got some cool stuff and we're looking forward to season 2 of this show. And we'll see what comes next. So like, subscribe, share, hit us up at hashtag Lost Legacies. You can find me on Twitter at _Matt Jimenez or on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me, as always, on Twitter and Instagram at Reel, that's REEL, Texas Weirdo.
Cool. So we love you guys. Until next time, get lost.
Get lost.